All right, we've got an episode chock full of r/petty revenge, and I'm excited to be here with you. It is the RR Show. I am Vince, and this is going to be good. It's all petty revenge today. So let's begin this episode of the RR Show right now. Our first story, of course, it's coming from r/petty revenge, posted by user Help. I love this name. Help, I have a brain. I ruined a friend's game as revenge for something I had suspected a few years prior. So when I was 16, I had this friend that I hadn't really talked to in a few years because I had strongly suspected him of stealing an action figure from my younger brother. Well, over time, my feelings about this had cooled, and by the time I reconnected with him, I didn't have any friends at the time, so I figured, what the hell? Thing is, I felt like anything we did was something he always wanted to do. Always what he wanted to eat, what he wanted to watch, what he wanted to listen to. Always what he wanted to play, despite so-called rules about guest right, whether I was at his house or he was at mine. Well, I got tired of this. It got to where my prior feelings about him having stolen my brother's action figure, which he later confirmed he did in fact steal, but at this point, it was just a strong suspicion of mine. These feelings had decided to creep back up, and I decided to do something dastardly. I was over at his house one night, and he put this boring military game into his Xbox. I honestly don't remember which one it was, as those aren't my type of game. After a while, he put Halo in, which I did enjoy playing somewhat, but then he mentioned having a few matches and going back to the other game. I was dreading this. Well, his parents were cooking and hollered to let us know dinner was done. He went to go get his dinner, and while he was gone, I got the other game out of the case, took a pocket knife, and put a deep cut into the disc center on out, and did so quickly so I wasn't too far behind in getting dinner to avoid suspicion. I put the disc back in the case and went to go get dinner. I came back to his room and we ate, and he already got to put the game in. I was a bit nervous, but I already had a story ready. He put the game in, turned it on, and the game froze and would not progress past the title screen. I asked him what was wrong, and he started to get a little upset. And he kept turning on the system on and off and never got any further than the title screen. He took the disc out and looked at it and said, "I don't understand. It worked before." I told him to let me look at it, and I whistled, the one that starts off high and goes low, and I said, "Looks like me, that's laser burn." He asked me what that was. I told him that sometimes lasers in games and DVD players can get a line in discs, making them unplayable. He got pissed and said, I loved that game." He put his head in his hands, and I patted him on the back to show him support. We played Halo for the rest of the night, and I reassured him that the same thing won't happen. It didn't. Didn't hang out with him after. The next story in this r/petty revenge episode comes from, of course, r/petty revenge. Posted by user The Dashing Mr. Fox. Petty revenge is best served loud, with a bucket of popcorn and an empty cup of soda. Throughout all of 2023 and 2024, I avoided opening weekend of films I wanted to see like the plague. After the COVID peak and everything started reopening, something clicked in people. I can't properly explain it any other way other than people decided that it was perfectly fine for them to be a jerk during a movie and ruin the entire experience for other people. Except for a handful of movies, I paid the $20 at-home showing of films I wanted to see to avoid any confrontations and that Nicole Kidman AMC buffer. For those exceptions, I still avoided opening weekend, but I would go see them during the work week. Unfortunately, nearly every film I went to go see was accompanied by a jerk, and Madam Web was my breaking point. When I purchased the Madam Web tickets, there were only 5 people in the 310-seat auditorium, all of whom were spread apart, and none were in the same row. Perfect. Now, I will admit I did purchase my seat on the same row as someone else, but we were 10 seats apart. And as it turned out, the other person was an elderly gentleman that I've seen enough times that we'd begun getting chummy. A pleasant surprise. What wasn't a pleasant surprise was the couple who came rolling in halfway through the trailers, pulling up on me, saying I was in one of their seats. I whipped my ticket out like a gunslinger from The Quick and the Dead, and sure enough, I was in my row in my seat. How did I know? Because I'm an adult, and therefore I can read the ticket letter on the floor and the number that's on my seat's armrest. When I asked them to check their tickets, I noticed that they bought the seat to my left and the seat to my right, which means this couple went to the ticket counter, and when they were asked what seats they wanted, took their finger, pressed on the screen, and selected those seats. And when I confronted them on it, they basically told me that if I didn't like it, that I could always move to a different seat. So I got up, left the auditorium, went to the ticket person, and asked him to pull up the seating chart. And sure enough, I was correct. The guy even asked if my friends found me, and when I told them what was up, his response was, "So these randos bought these seats directly beside you?" I took a picture of the seating chart, which I can't share on here, unfortunately, and told the guy that you may receive a call about an unruly moviegoer. He knew what I was about to do. He told me he'd keep an open ear for it. My partner in crime. The gloves were off. I bought a popcorn, a drink, and the loudest effing candy I could buy. Throughout the film, I was that jerk. I sat directly behind them. Thankfully, the film wasn't so ridiculously loud and so ridiculously terrible, I wasn't bothering anyone else in the theater. I kicked their seats. I was throwing popcorn. I was chewing the candy with my mouth open. I was adding commentary. I was sucking on an empty cup for like 45 minutes. I even took a phone call, and they just sat there and took it. By the end of the film, they were the first ones out of the theater, practically running. And the old guy gave me a thumbs up, and I bought him an overpriced beverage from their bar. And that's the end of the story. So Reddit, was I petty or was I petty? I do look forward to your comments. I will ask you one question though. If you entered an auditorium and you were one of 6 people in the showing, would you sit directly beside, in front, or behind another moviegoer? What do you consider common courtesy in this situation? Our third story in this episode of r/Petty Revenge, coming again, of course, from r/Petty Revenge, posted by user Linus, no, not that Linus. Pay for your child. I come from a family with divorced parents. My mother would often take my father or my half-brother's father to court to ensure she got as much money as she could out of them. My half-brother works in trades and was also doing side jobs for cash, i.e. cash unreported and not paying taxes. While we get along, he had wronged me many ways, which I won't bother getting into. But he'd also brag about how much he makes doing side jobs and what he would buy. He ended up knocking up a woman he had met on Tinder and then completely tried to ghost her. He deleted his Facebook account, etc. She lawyered up, and someone tracked him down to serve him papers. While he was served, he was working for one company and making a certain amount. So when he was served papers and went through the courts, was ordered to pay a certain amount of child support. He then switched employer and was making significantly more and should have then been paying more child support. At this point, he and my mother were bragging about him not having to pay as much as he should. Any extracurricular activities I did were paid for through child support or by my dad during visitation, and my half-brother wasn't doing anything except for watching the child during his now required visitation. So I created a fake Facebook account and informed the mother of the child of his new employment and higher pay, so that he'd be paying the requisite amount of child support, and hopefully that translate to the mother providing additional support or activities for my nephew. Our final story, you guessed it, comes from r/petty revenge. Coming from user Wikipandodia. I can't sell food? Fine. I'll sell the plates then. I stumbled across this subreddit and decided to share a story of petty revenge from my youth. 14-year-old me was a menace to society. She had her fair share of respect for authority and rules. But if you tried to impose a ridiculous rule on her and she found the tiniest of loopholes, she'd exploit it till kingdom come. Set the scene. I'm in middle school, and it's almost Easter. So every class is putting up a kiosk for a bazaar. You are allowed to sell anything, legal obviously, crafts, pastries, art, etc. My class wants to make some money to fund a trip. I've always liked cooking and making desserts, so I offer to make crepes for us to sell. I get up at an ungodly hour every morning and make them to make sure they are fresh. I wear gloves and a hairnet and make sure to sanitize everything to ensure it was safe. A classmate brings bananas because his dad owns a grocery store. Someone else brings honey their relatives sent to them because they live in a rural area, etc. You get the point. Team effort. We are up and running in no time and making mad bank. At lunch break, we always have a huge queue of kids waiting to buy our crepes. Unfortunately, that means the other kiosks aren't getting as much business. We are on good terms with most of the kids from the other kiosks because they're chill about it. One kiosk has more traffic than others because they're giving out 1 to 2 homemade cookies with every purchase. So after a few days, the girls from the cookie kiosk come over to us, along with the headmaster. He says that we can't sell food anymore because it is unfair to the other kiosks. I point out that the girls are also giving out cookies, to which he replies, "You can give out whatever you want for free, including food, but you can't sell it. That's unfair competition." Again, if he had shut it down because of a health concern, we would have dropped it at the bat of an eye. Health is no joke, but claiming that it was unfair that we had a good business idea didn't sit right with me. Everyone else was free to do what we were doing. I kept thinking about what he said. You can see where this is going, right? We were serving crepes on those generic white paper plates. So I buy a food-safe marker, flip some plates over, and start doodling. And some classmates with a knack with art follow suit. We mostly did cartoon and anime characters. Then I hang some plates up around our kiosk and change our sign to cartoon character art. $2 currency sign apiece, plus the crepe of your choice with every purchase. And we're back in business. Just like clockwork, the cookie kiosk girls are back at our kiosk with the headmaster again the next day. "I thought I made myself clear," he says. "You did, sir," I reply and point at the sign. After a long silence, a calm facepalm, and a long, I don't get paid enough for this sigh, he relents, and I give him a crepe on the house. He also suggested I become a lawyer. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.